All right, guys, I just finished WarioWare Move It. The credits have rolled after a couple of hours, and yeah, it's a standard WarioWare game. It is essentially a sequel to Smooth Moves, motion control based gameplay, amazing controls, lots of very reminiscent of the Wii classic. Honestly, this might be the most mileage any Switch game has gotten out of its Switch motion controls, right? Because this thing is having you do everything with like the AR, with the IR sensor, and having it like having you play like rock paper scissors against the AI, and like holding up a certain amount of fingers. Like it uses like the wrist straps, right? Like it's crazy what they're able to pull off with this game. And I'm seeing a lot of people like on 4chan right now try to write this off like, oh man, they need to stop making these games. They need to make Wario Land. Well, we don't want this. It's typical nonsense, right? Like this is one of those games that was unfortunately hit by the not a major release stick. Like when the September Direct kind of talked about this, a lot of people wrote this one off as being like the last final game in the Switch library, right? Something that nobody would really care about or play. But playing this game, especially early on with like, first getting the hang of like these controls, I was really, really impressed by them. I was really impressed by like the quality of the micro games and like the really fun, entertaining cutscenes. Like it's a WarioWare game, right? I don't think overall it's as good as Get It Together because I think Get It Together has like a shocking amount of single player content for a WarioWare game. It's like what? Like I think takes like 2, 3 hours to get through all of it. I think maybe not that long, but it felt longer than Move It, right? By a significant margin, right? And I don't know if there's really much more to do in Move It after like the story mode is over. Like it feels like Move It's designed to be more like a party game with like with more fleshed out multiplayer modes and stuff like that. And I don't know if that's really a bad thing, but for me personally, I think I really preferred having, you know, Get It Together just felt like it had more going on in a lot of ways. And that's just my first impression. Like maybe this is better than that. Like gameplay wise, I certainly think Move It is better. Like I was having so much fun with some of these micro games. They are legit some of the best micro games we've ever gotten out of WarioWare. There were like times where I was just like shocked by how good they were. Unfortunately, all of the best ones that you see early on, like the one with the giant robot where you control with both Joy Cons and like fire at like an enemy ship like it's a Star Fox game, like stuff like that. The one where you fight a giant octopus, like I didn't get to stream those, so you didn't get to see them. But like I legit came away from those in particular thinking this was like the best thing that WarioWare has ever done. And it's weird because it almost feels like the content is rather front loaded in that regard, where it feels like all the really good, memorable stuff you'll see like in the first couple of stages, and then after that, it's just a bunch of like just phoned in stuff. And not that there aren't good micro games later on, but like I really felt like going into this that the early ones were some of the best I've ever had. I've ever played in any WarioWare game. I was really really impressed with it. In general, I just had a blast playing it. Getting Together was good, right? But this is a wildly different WarioWare game, and I have a very hard time just imagining someone claiming to be a fan of WarioWare but not appreciating this. And that's kind of the problem I've been seeing on 4chan and like the message boards about this, like trying to find something to stick on the game, trying to find something to complain about because you can't complain about the length because it's standard for a WarioWare game. You can't complain about like the gameplay, right? Like so they have to like do this weird thing where they have to do like, oh, the controls don't work. I can confirm that's not true. Oh, there are too many characters. I can confirm that's not true. Oh, there's Wario's not in it all that much. Like that's standard for WarioWare, right? Like it's like people are trying to throw like all sorts of weird like accusations. One of the things I've seen is like people, oh, this the reason why there are so many characters in this game is because the Mario mandate has been lifted, right? That's the narrative now is that the Mario mandate has been lifted, not that it wasn't like a thing to begin with, right? The Mario mandate was never real, but a lot of people had deluded themselves into thinking that like it was, and that's kind of why we're getting so many WarioWare games now. Why we're getting like so many Mario spin-offs and stuff like that. Like it's ridiculous. I am it's absurd. Like the mandate crowd really meme this thing into being like the hot topic button topic issue of the past decade. And even now they still try and make it into a big thing. They still even now they try to find something to complain about when it comes to the Mario mandate. It's embarrassing. It really is. In general, like all the discourse around this game was embarrassing, right? Like when you actually play the game, when you actually experience it, when have the Joy Cons in your hands, striking those poses, you're gonna have a great time. But all I can see is people complaining about the game. Is it one of the best games of the year? No. Like I don't think any WarioWare game has ever like reached that point where it could be considered a game of the year contender purely because of the length and like the nature of the games, right? Like people wouldn't put like Mario parties on the list either, even though those are insanely popular. Like it's really weird seeing people like go after WarioWare, right? Like so many people, one of the big topics I've seen is people talking about the sales and how this can't be a big seller. I've seen people say like Get It Together was a bomb, not understanding just how cheaply put together these games are, that they're insanely profitable for their budget, right? Like I've seen people like insist that like releasing so many Mario games like back to back to back doesn't make a whole lot of sense from the marketing standpoint. Ignoring the release of the Mario movie, kind of like increasing demand for this kind of stuff. But also like ignoring the fact you're talking about games in completely different genres. Mario Kart, Mario Wonder, and like WarioWare Mario RPG have nothing to do with each other. They're all radically different franchises with their own design choices, audiences, and like appeal. And like so many people are just like desperate to try to find something to complain about when it comes to WarioWare. And I think what's going to happen is that like people are just going to pretend it didn't do very well, but in reality, it's perfectly great. I really enjoyed my time with it. I honestly want to say it's probably better than Smooth Moves, especially from a gameplay perspective. I really enjoyed my playthrough of this, and I really hope that like WarioWare really figures out a way to step up its game with future installments. Like they seem like complacent with what they've been doing lately, but I would not mind a sequel to this. I would not mind like more of this kind of gameplay. I would not mind like, you know, the developers really going balls to the wall. And in some cases, in this title, they did, right? Like these games are super underrated, and I hope that more people over like start to appreciate them for what they are.